Hello, today I want to talk about the Jeolla dialect versus Jeju dialect. As you can see, there's 6 major modern dialects of the Korean Peninsula, but we'll be focusing on the Jeolla and Jeju dialect. The reason why I wanted to focus on those two is because I noticed that on the map, the Jeolla province looks to be the closest to the Jeju province, and I noticed that the southernmost city in the Jeolla province is actually about 100 kilometers from the Jeju province. I want to first talk about the characteristics of the Jeolla province. So it is known to have vowel length distinctions, and one of the phrases they use a lot is goshigi, which basically is a pronoun to use when you can't think of the word in mind. They also change de to di in, for example, in grande, it changes to grandi. They also have jigum, which is now changed to shibang. They will also change an honorific ending of seo to rau or jiao. The tiptong wi in Jeolla dialect will change to because a lot of people actually can't pronounce the e. So, for example, Wisa, which is doctor, changes to Usa, and Wija, which is chair, changes to Uja. Lastly, they also have the ing ending, which they use a lot. So it can be used in 2 different examples that I have here. So it can change from bab mogoyo to bab mugoing, and it also can be used to add on to the word. So, for example, 재미없다 can change to 재미없다잉. Next, I want to talk about the characteristics of the Jeju dialect. So, one thing that is noticeable about the Jeju dialect is that it has a vowel from Middle Korean that is no longer used in modern Korean, because it is also still Korean, but a lot of the mainland Korean speakers think of it as another language just because it has been isolated from the rest of the mainland, so it has preserved a lot of the old ancient Korean words. So, for example, the honorific endings will change. So, yo will change to biupsho, and biupnika changes to kwa. They also like to combine words. So, for example, bab mogoni will change to bab mogon, and araso changes to aran. Speaking on the vowel from Middle Korean that the Jeju dialect still uses, it is known as an archaic vowel. It was a part of the Middle Korean phoneme, and over time, it has either been lost or combined with another phoneme in other dialects, except for the Jeju dialect, which has preserved it. So, using the example I have here with maul, which means village, you could see that in standard Korean it has changed to an on sound, and for the Jeolla dialect it has changed to an o sound. Now comparing the 2 dialects with a word from standard Korean, I have 안녕하세요. So in Jeolla dialect it changes to 안녕하신그라, and in Jeju dialect it changes to 안녕하스과. So as previously mentioned, the honorific ending changes to ra and kwa respectively. And then another honorific ending in 고맙습니다 in Jeolla it changes to 고맙그망이야이, and in Jeju it changes to 고맙쓰다. I have other words I wanted to compare. So for example, we have 할머니, which means grandmother. So in Jeolla it changes to 할매, and in Jeju it changes to 할망. You can actually see that the 는 consonant is absent in both. And the same thing for 어머니, which means mother. So in Jeolla dialect it changes to 어머니, and in Jeju it changes to 오명. Once again, you can notice that the consonant ñ is absent. Lastly, I wanted to bring this all together and talk about what I found doing my research. I noticed that the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization listed in 2010 Jeju as a critically endangered language, which meant that the youngest fluent speakers were either grandparents or of the older generation, because the younger generation, after standard Korean was implanted in the school system, started mixing Seoul dialect with Jeju dialect. So I have a question that I wanted to leave off in my research would be, could this actually happen to other dialects, such as the Jeolla dialect as well, especially with the younger generation going to Seoul to look for jobs? And here are my references.